Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening to everyone. Personally, I would like personally, we would like to express our gratitude to our lecturer. Today we're going to be talking about the human errors or human flaws that are inside this company that we chosen, which is Korean Air. Next slide. But first, before we explore the airline that our team has chosen, we have to look at the human factor in aviation, which which we find there are three of them. Well, first is the cognitive limitations, where a pilot would face attention overload and they would make poor decision making under memory lapses or heavy stress or prolonged prolonged hours of not sleeping. It all acts as a trigger in aviation accidents. Um, then we have the physical fatigue, which is also correlated to the cognitive limitations, which in regards is about the long duty hours, irregular sleep cycles, and high altitude conditions, which impair the crew alertness, reaction time, and overall flight performance. Last but not least, this is mostly common, but it's about the communication failure. It's the miscommunication between crew members and air traffic control, language barriers, and hierarchical silence, which are the causes for these preventable incidents. Next. So we've chosen Korean Air because Korean Air is South Korea's flag carrier. It's one of the largest airline in terms of fleet size, international destinations, and flights. It is founded in the 1962 by the Hanjin Group, which is one of the biggest chaebols. Is It's also worth mentioning that Korean Air is a founding member of SkyTeam, one of the arrangement where airlines are cooperating on a substantial level. It's like Star Alliance or One World. It's also one of the 11 airlines ranked as five-star airline according to Skytrax in 2024. It's also one of the top 20 airlines in the world in terms of passenger carried and one of the top ranked international cargo airlines. Next. Okay, next. Right. So now we understand the background of the airline, but there is a bit of a history with this airline. It doesn't usually come with success. It doesn't usually come with um, uh, a healthy background. It's actually a troublemaker. Despite the success, the airline had a rocky career before the 2000s, having at least several fatalities to the name in most of the crashes. These two examples shown in the slide are examples of are probably the worst examples, the worst accidents that happened from this airline. But as you can see, they are not related to this topic of ours because it's not usually about it happened because of external causes like politics, war, and so on. Korean Air is also regarded as an embarrassment to the nation by the former president Kim Dae-jung, South Korea. Um, there's all Overall, there's 17 documented major accidents on record and 20 more than 20 years of significant safety reforms. Um, but now, uh, um, but now our team will pass over to Isa. I will pass over to Isa, who will share us few examples of such incidents regarding human error from Korean Air.
Thank you, Jimmy. So I will go over two cases. So the first case is Flight 801. It was a missed approach. So this case occurred on 6th August of 1997. It was a Boeing 747-300 aircraft, and it was departing from Seoul, South Korea, and heading towards Guam, United States. It was carrying 254 passengers, and only 25 passengers survived. And the cause of the crash was found to be the controlled flight into terrain due to crew error and inoperative navigation aids. Next slide. So when we look at this case about the background and chronology of why this occurred, so the flight crew of this flight were actually experienced. They had hours in the range of 4,000 to 13,000 hours to their names. And the captain of this flight recently received a Flight Safety Award for successfully landing a 747 with engine failure at low altitude. And the crew initiated the ILS approach, but the glide slope, which was required for it to operate, was out of service, and the captain had to rely on a 40 altimeter and outdated charts. And also, the crew failed to execute missed approach despite terrain warnings. So, multiple warnings also occurred. They had time to react to that, but still. And around 1:42 a.m., the flight crashed on, it struck the Nimitz Hill 3 miles short of the runway, and the aircraft broke apart and it was set on fire. So, next slide. And the other case is the Stansted crash, flight 8509 on 22nd December of 1999. It was Boeing 747-200F, was heading from London, UK, and heading to Milan, Italy. This flight had only 4 occupants, which were the crew, and sadly, all crew members did not survive. And the cause of the crash was found to be a faulty attitude indicator, which is deemed to be a workplace hazard, and combined with failure to apply crew resource management and cross-check standby instruments, which is a human error. And the often talked about hierarchical cockpit culture prevented effective co-pilot intervention. It resulted in a power struggle between the crew. So next slide. So looking at this case, the captain was a former colonel and a pilot of the military with a total of 13,490 flying hours. Quite an impressive record. And the first officer only had 1,406 flying hours with 195 hours on the 747. And the flight engineer also had 8,301 hours accumulated. So around 10:17 UTC, Korean Air Cargo Flight 8509 departed Stansted Airport. Shortly after takeoff, the captain's attitude indicator malfunctions, showing a false bank reading. It showed a false bank angle, and the crew fails to cross-check the instruments. And the captain rose the aircraft into a steep left bank exceeding 90 degrees. And at around 10:18 UTC, despite the GPWS warnings and first officer alerts, the captain does not correct the bank. The Boeing 747-200F, it entered a unrecoverable dive and impacts a field near Hatfield Forest at high speed, sadly killing all 4 crew members on board. So now I'll pass over to my colleague, Sami.
Thank you, Isaac, for the flow. So now we're talking about the involvement of human error. Both of the incidents have been already discussed by my group mates. So we know that with billions of dollars and hundreds of lives lost, Korean Air triggered international security and industry-wide reforms in the crew resource management, CRM, and safety protocols. Firstly, I'll be talking about the flight 801. The captain ignored repeated GPWS warning, and first officer failed to assertively challenge the approach. The junior crew did not override the captain due to Korea's hierarchical cockpit culture, where the subordinates rarely questioned senior officers. Next, we have the flight 8509, which was in 1999 also. The crew failed to cross-check navigation instrument and they did not communicate effectively with ATC. This happened due to the fatigue from long duty hours, further impaired situational awareness, and of course decision making. We have like six common human error pattern. First of all is the hierarchical difference, which is mainly seen in Korea due to their cultural situation. The junior crew are suppressed without with their concerns, and then we have the fatigue impaired judgment on long haul routes. Third, we have inadequate cross checking of altitude and navigation data. We have on fourth, we have the poor situational awareness during night IMC approaches. Fifthly, we have automation complacency over reliance on autopilot system. And last, we have the language barrier causing miscommunication with ATC. Now, talking about the relevant workplace hazards. First of all, we have the operational hazards. We have inadequate crew training protocols, rigid hierarchical culture, suppressing co-pilot input, language barriers in ATC communication, and extreme time pressure during approach phases contributed to multiple Korean Air incidents. Then we have the environmental hazards. The poor weather condition, low visibility, fog, heavy rain, thunderstorms, and then lots and lots. These, and then we have the mountain terrain's proximity, CFIT risk. Then we have instrument malfunction and hazardous runway environment where critical environmental factors in Korea Air fatal accident. Now I'll be passing it to Zainul.
Thank you, Samir. Now, moving on to the next slide, we'll be taking a look at the prevention recommendations. So, based on the case studies, there are three critical areas that we need to focus on to ensure flight safety. Firstly, we have CRM and a hierarchy reform. So, crew resource management or CRM training must be absolutely mandatory. In past accidents like Korean Air Flights 801 and 8509, we saw that a strict traditional cockpit hierarchy meant that the first officers were too afraid to challenge the captain's mistakes. So we need a more flattened cockpit hierarchy where communication flows freely, which will allow the co-pilots to speak up safely. So to make this change happen, Korean Air has brought in expert consultants from Delta Airlines and Boeing. Secondly, we must enforce strict fatigue and environment protocols. So pilot fatigue is a massive hazard. So strict regulations and proper crew rest policies are vital. And furthermore, conditions are weather hazards like low visibility, flying through mountainous areas. All these conditions must be fully integrated into pre-flight briefings so that the crew is never caught off guard and always ready for any sort of situation. Third, we need advanced warning systems. So it should be mandatory to install enhanced ground proximity warning systems, which are also known as EGPWS, and keep their terrain databases fully up to date. This technology provides real-time terrain mapping and automated alerts. So this simple tech drastically reduces the risk of controlled flight into terrain, which is when an aircraft accidentally flies into the ground under steady control. Moving on to the next slide, the conclusion. So when we look back at these tragic events, the biggest takeaway is that human error, poor CRM, a traditional culture, and environmental hazards are deeply interconnected. One factor almost always amplifies the other. So preventing future accidents requires a complete strategy. It takes continuous crew training, open communication where everybody has a voice, modernized cockpit technology, and proactive hazard management across all flights. Ultimately, as you can see on the slide, safety is a shared responsibility. So by embracing these modern changes, the the aviation industry can continue fulfilling its ultimate goal, which is safely connecting people for a better world. Next slide. Finally, on this slide, we have listed our references and sources, and that brings our presentation to an end. Thank you so much for your time and your attention, and thank you.